Alright gang, so the big question, Mac versus PC. Apple, to keep it short and sweet, typically costs more on the hardware side, and it typically costs less on the application side. The applications, in my opinion, seem to be easier to use and sometimes less feature rich. However, as you will see, in some instances that's not necessarily a bad thing because you may not want to be an expert with any given application. On the contrast, if you want to be an expert with certain applications, depending upon what it is, there are some higher grade versions of it for Apple that might bridge the gap. So the other thing to mention is that Apple can also run Windows. So when you look at Apple hardware, you're going to see that it's probably double the price of the PC. You're going to see that it comes with really nice things like a magnetic charging station, which is probably going to be a little more durable. If you spill water in your Mac, you're going to find that it's more like buying an Audi than a Chevy. It's going to cost probably like $400 for a used part, $800 for a new main board. A new MacBook Pro is probably $1,300. In the case of Windows side of things, you could replace 2 or 3 of those laptops for the price. So maybe it's not a huge deal that the charging connectors really kind of suck and they tend to break. But you are getting Windows and Mac OS, which is kind of a neat feature.
Hello, I'm a Mac and I'm a PC.
When it comes to Apple themselves, as far as philosophy goes, they want you to spend their money with them. They're going to tell you that it voids the warranty to put RAM in. That very same RAM, when you go to purchase it, is going to be double the price. So, if you want to buy a Mac Mini, you're looking at 4 gigs of RAM for $800. That's pretty inflated. Look at cores. There we go. Get a 6-core AMD processor, 12 gigs of RAM for $549. And in contrast, I had Micro Center build me a system closer to the power level of this Apple Mac Pro for $2,200 with 64 gigs of RAM. And when you look at Apple, you're getting a whopping 12 gigs of RAM for $3,000. So, depending upon what price point you're at, laptops, it's clear-cut Apple wins. High-end desktops, Windows wins unless you need Macintosh. In the mid-level, it really just depends. The Mac has a superior hardware. It's small, it's convenient. So in that regard, it's a win. It can also run Windows and Mac. If you wanted to slam in 16 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig solid state hard drive, you're looking at $1,399. If you run up to Micro Center or Apple, you can get this Mac Mini for $50 less than what Apple's selling it for, or Apple will price match, which is what they did for me, which was pretty much no questions asked. And if you're savvy enough to put your own hard drive and your own RAM, you can get double the solid state drive, equal amount of RAM for $1,250. So that's kind of my spiel when it comes to the hardware part of things. Now let's look at the operating systems. Let's talk about Apple for a minute. Let's talk about some of the pros. The pros are that the operating system is real intuitive. I just really like it. It seems like home. It's like visiting mom and eating her apple pie. Or, it's like her spaghetti. No one beats mom's spaghetti. In a way, no one beats Apple's interface. Now, you have these neat little features that you can scroll through and preview things. And Apple just gets it for the most part when it comes to the basic end user as far as making something intuitive, and it just works. Now, when it comes to any advanced sort of features when you're a user, that's when it kind of falls apart a little bit. Not to say that it's a deal breaker, but it does fall apart a little bit. So I want to, let's just take an example here. VMware Fusion. Alright, I'm going to move this to my second monitor and I want to work in Outlook. Well, now wait a second. My bar here is stuck to my primary monitor. Now I open up Outlook. I want to check email and whatnot. Okay, well, I can't work over here in VMware Fusion with its own bar. I have to now come back to the right monitor and then mess with the VMware Fusion. It's not uncommon for people that do sort of business work, like brokers or video editors, to have 2 to 4 monitors. And to me, it just seems absurd that this menu does not follow the application. Now, maybe there's a Mac workshop that I can take that will fix that problem, but that's, to me, is kind of annoying. This mission control seems pretty pointless as well. Kind of blocks out all my monitors. It has some little plus. Okay, so I got multiple desktops, which looks like that could be kind of cool, actually. The dashboard seems pretty useless to me that the widgets are docked. But, you know, whatever. Now that I know about the desktops, it's pretty slick. Otherwise, I think it would be pretty useless. When it comes to FaceTime, it's a neat application that integrates well with all of your other devices. So, you know, one neat thing about the iPhone is that the calendar on the iPhone is the calendar on the Apple OS, is the reminders on the Apple OS, is the reminders on the iPhone. So you get a really good integration of these products. If you own several Apple products, they're very seamless. The settings on the iPhone looks like the settings on the Apple. And I remember when the iPhone first came out, I thought it was a brilliant strategy because I felt like the phone was going to be a segue into getting people to buy more Apple computers, kind of like a little conspiracy there. And when it comes to Apple, I have a saying. It's the same saying that Grandpa used to say about women. You know, you can't live with them, can't live without them. And for me, Apple's kind of that way. No matter what, no matter how much you hate Apple, you hate their price gouging, they make such good products that it's inevitable that at some point you're going to own several Apple products in the course of your lifetime. So let's take a look at a couple other features here, or of the Apple. The little finder is nice. I like that. They do make an attempt to show all the NetBIOS names of all the different shares and whatnot. This is where Apple starts to lag a little bit for me. It seems a little slow to access folders. When it comes to mapping a network share, I think you have to hit squiggly line K. You can map the share. In some cases, commodity storage and network devices are not Apple friendly, forcing you to buy proprietary Apple products. It just seems, you know, this is more of a Linux world kind of thing with SMB and mapping and file share, and it's sort of alien to me, but it doesn't take a whole lot of time to eventually get used to that. You know, Google can kind of sort that out. But in the realm of the networking side of things, I think there could be an improvement. Time Machine, you know, that's a really great tool. It reminds me of something like a Cronus. It comes with Apple, which is nice, so you save a little money there. You know, Cronus might cost you, say, I don't know, $70. You could probably get it on sale for $50 in the Windows world. So in the Mac world, you're already starting to see a little savings to make up for the extra price on the hardware. You kind of get a disk imaging and backup system. You know, you already get a video editing system that's probably on par with something cheap like Pinnacle, and for the average person, it's probably decent. So you do get some built-in value add from some of the applications that they have. You don't have to download Skype if you know, and to use it if you have like a Mac-friendly family and friends. You can talk to the iPhone and things like that. iMessage will probably work here with the messages, to the tablet and the phones and all that good stuff. So you've got a really good integration. You know, your contacts will sync down from the iCloud. So that's cool. You can get this sort of functionality with Windows and a hodgepodge of sort of different things, but Apple does a really good job of sticking them all together. When it comes to other applications like VMware Fusion, this is where the apps tend to run cheaper, which is a plus. However, you're lacking some of the functionality if you're an advanced user. So, you know, case in point, if I'm running my VM and I exit the VM, it's going to pause it. Now, you know, for the average person who's doing some labs and you want to nest a, you know, Hyper-V within Windows, within VMware Fusion, and take a little lab, or you're learning ESX, and you don't have a real desire to keep this stuff running in sort of a simulated professional environment, then this is a real inexpensive product that will work well for you. If you're like me and you have a robust lab system that you want to run all the time, and you're running 30 or 40 VMs, and you're serving up a bunch of storage and things like that, that's where suspending the VM automatically is sort of annoying. Now, there may be a way to get around this. I'm not entirely sure if there is or not, and I'll report back to you on the odd chance that there is. But overall, the experience when it comes to using this just seems a little off to me. In the case of ESX, whenever I hit F11, it kind of bombs out the OS, and it tabs me into some other screen, and it blows up the VMware application. Now, as far as super user mode goes, Apple kind of has a Linux philosophy to that, which is a lot less intrusive than Windows UAC popping up and hiding everything. So that's a pretty cool concept on the Apple side of things. The App Store is superior to the Microsoft Store. You'll notice certain applications like Final Cut, you might think are expensive at first, but in actuality, to get a prosumer, and this just went up in price. It was $250 yesterday or a couple days ago, but to get a prosumer video editing suite for even $300 is really a steal in comparison to getting Adobe CS Suite or something else in the case of the Mac or the Windows world. So some of the Apple product lines are pretty favorable. If you get this and Logic and the other application that replaces Final Cut Pro Studio, you're going to walk away, if you're not a student or not, you're going to walk away at about $900. In Adobe Premiere world, to get the premium production, you're going to walk away at like $1,600. Unless you're a student, then you're going to walk away at around $800 or so. So you get a pretty good prosumer-like video editing suite for a relatively good price. If you're tied to Microsoft when it comes to Outlook and Word and Windows and stuff like that, I'm not too fond of this view. It seems a little antiquated, but that's really not Apple's fault. That's going to be more Microsoft's way of probably keeping people on the Windows side of things, to buy the Windows versions. Either that or maybe the Mac philosophy is a little different. If you're not wanting to be an expert, and really in the case of Camtasia, I don't use it that much, and I don't care about some of the advanced functionalities, so for all intents and purposes, it's a lot easier and less expensive than Camtasia in the Windows world. Trying to think of what other features we might look at. Time Machine is, talking about Time Machine, going back to that, it's a really nice product. It works very well. I actually had an issue when I first put my hard drive in and replaced it to where I needed to boot up off the USB device, and then I then cloned my new drive with the old drive, a very, very Acronis-like feature. And then once it came up, Time Machine just restored the entire OS with all the applications and everything, and that's built in, which is really great. The downside to it, where you kind of get stuck with Apple, is the lack of the flexibility to kind of do whatever you want when it comes to storage and networking. So, in other words, you have to pretty much, when it comes to backing up to, say, a network device, with Acronis, you can do that to any network device. With Time Machine, you're kind of limited to using Apple's Time Capsule, I want to say. So, and I apologize, I'm having complications with my mouse here. When it comes to VMware that I have to use this send the key to hit F11. I think I might have mentioned that earlier, but alright, so let's go ahead and minimize that in the background. Alright, so when it comes to VMware Fusion, now that I have Windows 8 up, we can look at kind of an example here. Let me go ahead and download TeamViewer. Go ahead and download it. It's going to download it on the Mac, and then this is a neat little feature of VMware. And for $100, you can actually get the Pro and add the functionality of the networks and things like that, which might be cool. So, all right, VMware Tools has allowed, it's logged me off, and now it's allowing the sharing of applications and whatnot. So, alright, so it's seamlessly just kind of running the application in Windows. So that's cool. And I think that if we had some other apps, it's entirely possible that, you know, WinZip or something, that it would potentially open the program up in Windows if you had WinZip loaded. So that's something I'll have to toy with a little more, but this is one of the what they call the seamless integration that you have with VMware Fusion. So alright, here I go suspending things again. Let's see, what other RDP does not allow me to connect via multiple monitors, which is kind of frustrating, but it sort of looks like Apple's not really multi-monitor friendly anyways. Let's look at one other product here. So SplashTop. This is a very interesting tool. SplashTop 2, in fact, works with everything. It works on every device. You can stream from every OS. So this is a brilliant application. So here I am, I'm using SplashTop, and I'm connecting to my PC just for the purposes of this demonstration. So when it comes to Windows, you know, they're starting to get this sort of Apple feel in Windows 8 to where it shows previews of items. When it comes to storing, like browsing the network, you know, typically it just moves a lot quicker to discover devices and browse the network. Now you can mount ISO images natively, which is kind of cool, which is probably borrowed in part from Apple. I think you could mount different sorts of images and drives natively for some time there. You know, you kind of have the network discovery when it's turned on, and works in a similar way to the Apple. When it comes to applications, we'll look at VMware for a second. You know, once again, VMware is more expensive. When I open my VM up, I double click on it. I can actually interact with it in the console here versus it being sort of disconnected from the start menu or from the file menu. If I minimize this and move it, as you can see, the file menu sort of follows. If I close my VMs, they are in fact actually running. The first time you do it, it asks you, would you like to suspend these, or would you like to run them in the background? In fact, you can even close out VMware so long as there's not a lot going on with that particular VM. When it comes to the App Store, Microsoft has a good best effort. Things like Skype, I think, suck for the Apple Store. Things like Netflix are pretty good, especially if you're using them on a television. The mouse functionality in Windows 8 is really nice. It's designed to go in a landscape, and it's really the Microsoft's focus here was to give you a similar view no matter what product you're running. So whether or not you're running a tablet or a phone or a PC. And they're almost spot on with this. There's a couple complaints that I have. One is for corporate America. In corporate America, I should not ever see this Metro view. I doubtfully will be running 27-inch televisions, and unless I'm in a projector or something like that, this view is not applicable. On my television, you know, Windows 8 looks pretty good for a TV. if I was to say RDP in from a tablet, whether it was an iPad or some other tablet, I've got this cool little keyboard, so I don't even have to have a keyboard and mouse. I can type on screen within Windows. Pretty nice. The start menu and everything is really kind of mouse driven, which is very nice. The thing that's lacking, though, that Microsoft could do a much better job on, we hop over to the control panel here, and the original view is probably going to be small icons, and your folders are going to be optimized more for a desktop. I think that Windows should have, when you install it, it should have 4 icons on the screen: business, tablet, laptop, television. And when you click on it, I think that what Windows should do in the future is optimize for, if it's a TV, it could even ask you the size, like these different displays, but it could probably do a better job of giving you your large icons, setting up the display, when it comes to the font sizes and the way that the things are viewing on the screen. When it comes to folder sizes, there's all sorts of different options to where you could have really big icons to look at them from your couch. You should be able to customize these sidebars to scale up in that regard, or actually, better yet, it should do it for you. So there's an opportunity there when it comes to Windows for multiple devices, even though that right now you're getting a pretty seamless interoperability between different devices. When it comes to remote desktop protocol, you can connect in and you can see multiple devices. You can pass audio. So that's a really nice feature set. Some of the new applications out there are starting to allow for AirPlay to Windows. Reflector. So Reflector here will allow you to stream to the Windows PC. When it comes to video, it's not so good. When it comes to music, though, it seems to work just fine. And another thing that could be pretty cool is if I was doing some video tutorials on the iPhone, I could screen capture through this device. I can screen capture the actual iPhone as well, which could come in handy. So it's neat to see some of these cross-platform applications come out, which to me is sort of a boon to say, look, more people are probably using Windows and Mac. So as you can see here, I can actually mirror the phone. But as far as videos go, well, let's see here. I didn't try my own video, but what I was trying to do was extend some of the functionality, like NBC.com. That's a pretty nifty app that I enjoy. And I was hoping that I could, say, take a video, like a full episode. I don't know what we have here. I guess The Voice. Let's just grab that. I was hoping to take something like The Voice and stream the video. So that looks pretty good. But actually what I was doing before was I wasn't actually doing the complete mirroring. I think I was just trying to play the video. Yeah, here we go. So seems like the audio is a little off. Let's see if we turn the mirroring back on, if that sounds better. Okay, so the mirroring seems okay. Let's see if there's an option to go full screen or not. I bet if I contact the developer, they might actually be able to fix this. So when you look at Camtasia, you get a lot more features and functionality, transitions, and things like that. Some of the more advanced stuff is a little more intuitive, but overall, I find that it's a lot harder to work in this application than the Mac version. And for the amount of money that you spend on it, I really feel like Apple does a better job. Alright, a couple other things that we should probably touch bases on is, for the most part, when it comes to Mac, you have much better integration with the hardware because they only make 2 or 3 types of hardware. So there's a little better stability. I think the systems can be a little more tuned. You don't have to put your hands on them and touch them as much as far as setting up BIOS and tweaking out different things and different aspects of it. So in that regard, Apple kind of has an advantage over Windows. When it comes to the Internet Explorer, it can be more widely used. It at times is a little more compatible, but then there's also times when you go to a newer revision of it, like IE10, where it'll kind of be mind-boggling that even Microsoft websites won't load properly. The security settings in the newer Windows 8 seems to be very restrictive and annoying in comparison to Apple's. And a lot of times if you download Google, Chrome or a different browser, it really performs a lot better. Both Apple and Windows are trying to embed Adobe, and I think neither of them has the JRE runtime. In the case of some of the applications that I like to use, like JDisk Report, it seems as if there is no 64-bit version of Java, so it's inconvenient where you have to browse and try to find. There's some new tools in Windows 8. The snipping tool is nice for screen capture. That's a pretty cool feature. There's a there's a steps recorder where you can do tutorials. I think that's pretty much it for now.